On this month of EdTech, we're going to be talking about securing AV, the acquisition of Harman, the Benjamin Franklin Institute, and flying saucer research. Tune in.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is EdTech, your monthly higher ed AV podcast. I'm your host, Bill O'Donnell. Today, I'm joined by my fine associate, Mr. Ernie Bailey.
Howdy.
How do, sir?
Glad to see you.
Indeed. And I'm also joined by Mr. George Fournier from FSR.
How are you? Good to see you all.
I'm doing well, sir. Good to see you as well. So one of the first things we'll just mention for a minute here is that just this past week, Samsung had acquired Harman. We've, as I say, if anything, a couple of our podcasts, both AV Week and Resi Week, have talked about it quite a bit. I would say on the higher ed side, it seems more like there's going to be some campuses, I think, that will be a little bit in flux because they use AMX, but for the most part, on my side, it's been mostly Samsung is kind of viewed as a consumer grade. There are some commercial grades, but access, but I don't think as much as it would, say, in the residential and consumer markets. Ernie, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with what you said. I think we'll see it affecting the residential markets. I don't think we're really going to see anything on our campus anyway. We use some of Harman's products. Like you said, we generally consider Samsung to be a consumer grade for most products. That's not the path we usually take. We are a Crestron campus, so we're not dealing with AMX, so we're not going to see that effect there. We do use some of their audio products across campus.
Well, and yeah, it's one of those things where if, like in my case, the only thing that's really going to affect us is we use BSS for our DSPs, and it might come down where, for all we know, Samsung could look at BSS and say, "Well, it's not really making us that much money. We're going to spin that off." But
right.
It's really their collect. They've just bought everything, and we'll see what makes money and what doesn't, and what stays and what goes.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Fournier, you have any thoughts on that?
You basically hit it on the nail on the head there. I mean, what I've seen press-wise from them is they seem to be more focused on the automotive aspects that they could pick up from it. And you really didn't see a whole lot of mention of the AMX or SVSI in their press. So I'm really curious to see what happens if that is going to get spun off, or if they didn't open the box yet and go, "Ooh, look what else we have." It's going to be curious to see what actually happens with that.
Yeah. So, that being said, if you want to learn more about that, by all means, please look at the AV Week special, as well as the Resi Week special. Both of them cover it into far greater detail. So that being said, the first article we're going to look at is Infocom teams up with the Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology. Now, this is an interesting article because it's the first time I'm at least seeing that Infocom is actually partnering with a school of higher ed, and as well as they're working in their CTS test as part of the course program. Ernie, I'm going to let you talk about this first.
Okay. Well, you probably know I've been involved with the Infocom board in the past and a lot of the educational programs. And this is something that has been sought for probably 12 to 15 years, something like this. And there's been discussion of it, and this is the furthest I've ever seen it make it. Over the last few months, I think either last month or 2 months ago, we actually spoke about them doing this in South America. The same type deal, except I believe it might have been going even towards the high school market. I'm excited to see it. I'd like to see a certificate program or a degree, maybe an associate's degree come out of something like this, and then see it spread to other technical schools. I'd love to be able to get somebody with some sort of certificate or degree in AV or in presentation technologies or whatever they want to call it.
Right.
I should say this in the article itself. This is part of their computer technology department, and the eventual goal is that it's going to be an associate's, essentially an associate's in AV. So
Yeah.
it's the first start. Is it a bachelor's? No, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So
well, even an associate's degree, something we can put on a invitation for new employees. We'll give you X number of points for having an associate's degree in AV.
Right.
Right now, there's nothing you really put on there.
Right. And even if you have an associate's program in place, if somebody's getting a bachelor's in computer technologies, they could have that as a minor,
right,
in their program,
exactly.
Which would be very good. I loved seeing this article and the other one that was previous about the high school district out in California that was doing it as well. It was just very interesting. It was actually last night. I'm a den leader for Cub Scouts in my town, and one of the kids that's in my class, his father is the STEM teacher at the high school. And our high school is actually a lot of the high schools in our county are trying to become magnet schools. So one of the schools in another town is more VOTEC than anything else. Our school is trying to establish themselves as a STEM school, and attracting in kids from other districts as well, so they can actually pick which districts they go to, which schools they go to within the county. And one of the things we were talking about was I had sent this article to him, and I had sent the one previously, and it's something that they actually want to propose to the school district in town to see if it's something that we might want to go ahead with at that level, for at least showing the kids that there's other avenues available. There's other industries that they don't even think about.
Yeah, this is impressive in the regards of before it used to be, well, you have your other manufacturers training, or if you have, say, some Cisco certifications, it's, oh wow, that's really great. And
right.
And I'm not knocking that. If anything, it's more impressive that it's actually starting to get built in at the collegiate level.
Right.
And within that, you also end up having things like you have the there are ways where I can see it where you're eventually going to start seeing, like, maybe it may not be immediate, but say like AV math, or geometry for AV, which is essentially projector training, but still, well, yeah. Hey, that's if anything, that's the biggest thing I ever learned from messing with the guys from digital projection, was when it came to screen blend or edge blending or screen blending. They're like, oh, it's just straight geometry. They're like, you just have to work out the math, and it's like, everyone thinks, oh my gosh, it's so hard. He's like, no, it's just geometry.
Right.
So
yeah, no, I mean, exactly. Is when you look at what's involved in, like, in this article, they mentioned they're going to use Quick Start for the AV industry and essentials. That is, both of those classes are such a broad spectrum exposure to everything that it can be done in a quote AV job. So you may have guys who have more of a tendency, or girls also, I'm not trying to spec one out over the other. You may have students who actually look at, hey, project management may be my avenue, or architecturally, learning about, they may want to learn more about acoustics or projection, as you said. And it just shows that there's a whole other end of it that they can actually go on from. And this may be just an entry point to it. They may not even become an AV-centric person, but they just thought of a whole new avenue to go down.
Oh yeah, no, if anything, just recently, one of the things we ended up having a common ground with was our CODS, or Communications Disorders group. And they were the ones who originally came to us saying, "Hey, the following classrooms are really they're too noisy." And our capital plans folks were like, "Oh no, you guys, it's semantics. We're not believing you." And I actually went in and had one of the little handy dandy smart tools on my phone, which was like about $5.
Mhm.
And we took a reading, and the noise floor in the room was like 60 decibels, and they're going, "No, that's the sound of a regular conversation." And they went, "Wait, how do you know about noise floors?" I'm like, "Well, it's part of the AV stuff and everything." They went, "Oh my God," they're like, "We thought we were the only ones that got into this kind of stuff." But it's a good common ground, and it's one of those things where will it always pop up? No, but you'd be surprised where sometimes the common ground is.
Yeah, exactly. So many people use our technology and don't even realize they're using it. And they don't realize there's a whole industry behind it. And the sooner we can get these guys into it, the greater it's going to be down the road.
Yeah, it's an impressive. If anything, I'm looking forward to seeing how many students come out of this program initially and everything. So yeah. So moving on from that, the next one, and the commercials have been kind of popping up here and there, but you guys have seen the new Microsoft Surface Studio, which I've gotten to play around with the thing. It's actually pretty cool. And what it is that essentially Microsoft took the all-in-one PC approach. However, they also started going to making it to where it's you can actually fold and work the monitor into essentially a drawing desk, and then on top of that they also have the dial. Now, what's that mean for higher ed is, if anything, I'll be surprised if most art departments don't start rethinking how their animation studios are done, and more to the point, also how their drawing and sketch studios go.
I would have loved one of these when I was CADing.
Yeah, it's if anything, George, you of all folks would definitely get a kick out of it, because they have and literally this is what Microsoft is calling the thing. It's the tool is called the dial.
Yes.
And so you can actually like twist it, you can actually twist it on the screen, and you can adjust things like tint, hue, line thickness, and all the other kind of stuff. They've pretty much partnered with Adobe on this.
Right.
So go ahead.
It was I watched the video that's attached to the article, and it was really interesting. But it's to see the tie-in with what's been going on lately with the Surface commercials. Mm-hmm. You have the animators that they were showing who used Surface for the movie that they put out, and so now imagine if they had this.
Oh yeah. It's a fun one. Ernie, what do you think?
I don't see a big use for this in the academic health science fields. For what we're doing, I mean, we are using some touch screens for animation. I think this are, well, not really for animation, but for annotation. Mm-hmm. But for what we're seeing in the academic, like I said, in the health science classrooms, I don't see a big push for this. Like we were saying, like George was saying, I'd love to have it for my CAD work here at my desk.
Right. Yeah.
But as far as pushing out the classrooms, this is not something I see us using right now.
I was actually thinking about that last night. I don't see this so much on the education and in the classrooms, but think about it medically. Is if you're doing high-res MRI review, right? You can put that on the screen and actually do the annotations right on the screen, and a doctor can do everything and just say, "Well, wait a minute, this thing," and it becomes that user interface to the drawing, to the image, and as opposed to remembering to use their mouse, or they're learning their software or whatever. It's like I could just walk up to the screen and start grabbing and touching and moving.
Right. Now,
that's where you'll see a big application for it. Probably.
Okay. Now the thing that I'll counter with on this one, Ernie, is when it comes to the say like the nursing or some of the when they're doing some of the rounds and everything. Do the faculty use, like, say, a Surface Pro, or do they use like an iPad, or for them it's really more of just, here's our clipboard, here's our sheets, and we'll just kind of go off the pen and paper stuff?
They're using an iPad or a Surface, but more as a digital clipboard. Okay. I haven't seen any applications, like I said, where this could really come into play for what they're doing.
Fair enough.
At this point, I'm not saying, you know.
Right. This may be one of those things that it needs the content to catch up with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen that. We've seen, you know, some of our basic AV tools work their way into some of those areas slowly. And, you know, when they come to us and are looking for a solution, we, you know, I know about this so I can present it, but no one's presented the problem that this is the solution for it yet.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
One of the things I was thinking of was actually from a public safety side of it. If the security departments in college campuses had one of these with all their cameras, and there was God forbid, one of those situations where they had to lock down a building or something like that, you can actually tie all the cameras into this and just be pointing around and moving very easily. And that interface could actually be, save a lot of time and a lot of frustration of real-time updates and stuff.
Yeah. If anything, if anything, George, I do appreciate it. You always do kind of come from the public safety / general concern. It should also be noted, George is also George, are you still an active firefighter, or?
I was a volunteer firefighter for 31 years. Now I've moved over to what is called fire police, where we actually do traffic control and scene safety and that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
The body doesn't keep up anymore.
Fair enough. But in George's case, it is very much safety oriented, which can be very much appreciated. The next one actually it comes actually from a friend of ours. It's Paul Zealy, and it's on specifying a secure AV system. Now, I will say this: I previously came from the DoD realm, so I understand about the idea of the secure AV system. However, in Ernie's case, I think there's a lot more that has to do with the confidentiality and HIPAA laws,
Exactly.
more than security. So, Ernie, I'll let you talk about that first a little bit more, as
Well,
not everyone understands that.
we do. I mean, we've always kind of locked down our systems. You know, our network. You know, we are a hospital, a research institute, and a university. And when it comes to security, we're a hospital first.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is locked down on our network.
Mm-hmm.
And anything we put on it has to be HIPAA compliant, or it can't provide a pathway into anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's not HIPAA compliant, it can't interfere with HIPAA compliance. George, you have something?
No, I'm just going to do a little bit of a shameless product plug on that as well. Is that the HIPAA rules, being from the fire service and EMS service, you know, we're very familiar with them as well. And FSR does collaboration systems, which are hardwired systems. And one of the conversations we always have with the education market is HIPAA. The second you start saying you can't go wireless if somebody can sit outside and start pinging your system and downloading your stuff. So instantly when I read this article, that was the first word that shot in my head was HIPAA compliance.
Yes.
And that's from my from my other side, but
Well, we do that.
100%.
You know, we do a lot of video conferencing. We have multiple campuses, and so we have to make sure that we're secure between them.
Right.
And you know, I'm just looking at things like, yes, we changed the default password. We have a default password for some of our stuff, but it changes on a regular basis. Not as often as they force us to change our personal passwords, but if we lose somebody on any of our teams, passwords change, things like that. And, you know, we use encryption, and then, you know, we get into HTTP issues as well when you're going with a secure system.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what can you send down it? And
Yeah, it's for us. Usually, when I come to our network folks, or specifically our network security folks, they're always kind of a little hesitant as to, okay, what do you want to put on our network? And I go, listen, this is what it does, and they're still, much like a guard dog, they still got the hackles up and going, and I go, well, listen, here's the network documentation. Here's exactly the ports we need open. Here's the TCP and UDP, and they go, oh, we can shut everything else down? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Well,
they usually calm down after that.
They fixed that for me unintentionally here on campus, and that they moved me into network engineering. So I just open my door and say, "Hey, how do I do this?"
There you go. There you go. In a previous life, I worked for a integrator who was also a UCC integrator, and our drawing packages always had these proposal pages, is what I called them, that said, okay, this is our network structure, this is the network structure we're requesting, this is our MAC addresses that we're going to be providing you, this is what we need, just as Bill said, the stuff that we need to get from them to start that conversation, so that when they would see the first drawing packages, these were some of the first pages they would get to, and they go, oh, wait a minute, and it would actually trigger that stuff. Now that information would not be captured into those packages later on in case that fell into the wrong hands, but it started that conversation, and these to get them thinking in a different way. And that was about 5 years ago, before a lot of this stuff started coming up, where people were backdooring their ways into VTC systems and stuff like that. And,
yeah. If anything, I can tell you on this one, this is a personal fun project of mine. Our broadcast folks bought some equipments, and it's essentially a encoding and decoding little streamer boxes and everything. However, our campus has gone, our security guys have gone on full lockdown, and that they've implemented 802.1x authentication, which, from a network standpoint, it's like, okay, that's fine. 802.1x is essentially, here's your authentication. It's, essentially the network equivalent of, here's my passport and here are my papers. I am who I am. Well, the company that they bought all this stuff from, I kicked back the question to them. I said, hey, do you guys do 802.1x authentication? And they went, oh, yeah, no, it does 802.1 wireless. And I went, that's good, guys. That's not what I was asking for. And so we're going through a painful process right now to where our firewall and security guys, for the most part, are kind of, taking the MAC addresses and making an exception, have to make essentially a whitelist across campus, which can it be done? Yes. Is it the most the most forward of things? No, but it's one of those things we have to get, we need to get the stuff on the network, but it's just a matter of, I'm trying to tell folks, listen, we're on the network. We have to kind of play by their rules. As much as cool as the stuff is, we can't leave it to where the box is going to leave us open for a DDoS attack. Not that William Patterson is rocking the boat anywhere or causing major enemies, except maybe in the jazz program, but they're international. But it's, you have to at least make sure that these devices are not the reason why a network goes down.
Right.
It's just one of those security or security focused things.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, it was wireless keyboards. The USB key that you were putting in was actually key capture, and there was a Trojan horse that would just sleep there and sit there and wait, and they could activate it, catch all your keystrokes, catch your passwords, catch everything coming off of it. And everyone's like, but it says Logitech on it, or it says so and so on it. It's like, yeah, but what you did with it or who you bought it from, you don't know what they put to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun one in that in a previous life, there were times where if you unplugged took a flash thumb drive and put it on one network and plugged into the other, you could go to jail for that.
Mm-hmm.
These days, it really turns more into, Bill, don't ever do that again. That was very bad. And I go, am I going to jail? They're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay then. But on that flip side, though, and Ernie can definitely attest to this far more than I can. HIPAA compliance, it's not don't do that ever again. It's listen, you get that was strike one.
Right.
There is no strike two.
Yeah.
Ernie, am I close with that?
You are, and I mean there are fines for even putting a thumb drive in some computers, in in the clinical spaces.
Really?
Yeah. There may be a fine, or there may be dismissal, or other consequences.
Yeah. There was a crazy glue incident at a hospital near me. Who they went around and wanted to make sure that that nobody could do that, so they went around and crazy glued all USB ports closed, so that they could not be accessed unattended.
Right.
Wow.
We do have some systems that require an encrypted thumb drive. If you plug a non-encrypted one in, it will shut down the port, or notify the HIPAA compliance office, and so a compliance officer will show up in your office within 2 or 3 minutes and take it away from you.
Good times.
Nice.
The closest that I ever came to that was with Lockheed Martin. They had to come up with this thing called Iron Key, and essentially it was an encrypted flash drive that you can only get done at a Lockheed service center. Which the closest one for me was Moorestown, not Morristown, Moorestown. And now, luckily, I was over at McGuire, which is about maybe like it's a 20-minute drive, but still, it's a 20-minute drive that you don't have to do. And
through the swamps of Jersey.
Yes. Anyways, the trick was that if you lost the password to the USB drive, you had to take it over to the service center, and they then essentially plugged it into a specific drive that went and just nuked everything. The thing was there was no backdoor passwords. If you had your resume and the project files and everything else on there, sorry, it's done. You can't get it back. I don't think things will ever get to that level. However, in Ernie's case, it is you lost it. It's one of those things of, you plugged in a non-encrypted device. Yes, here you go. Here's the compliance officer, and nothing strikes fear quicker into the hearts of the DoD world, or by the sounds of it, the medical field, as hearing the words, "You are not in compliance."
Yes.
So, it's the fun world of security. But if anything, just going back to the original article, I appreciate Paul's work on all this, mostly because him and I actually work together at McGuire for some of these things. So it's good to see that there is more of an emphasis of security within AV. I know Paul is trying to work up some of the AMX stuff to well beyond the two-factor authentication, as well as them using common access cards for certificates and authentication, all that kind of fun stuff. Do I think? Go ahead.
No, a couple of months ago we had the IoT Infocom conference in New York. And Mr. Shrego joined us for that. And there was quite an extensive conversation on the security of this stuff as we go forward. And it's refreshing to see that it's not we forgot security. It's okay, we got to do security.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those fun ones where the back of my brain is still going to be scared to this day as to I'm waiting whether or not hackers are going to hold my my downstairs fridge full of adult beverages for ransom. So that's what motivates me on these things. Anyways. So we are coming to a close here. Mr. Ernie Bailey, do you have any final remarks or where folks can find you?
I don't know about any final remarks. You can usually find me on LinkedIn. So check me out there. Occasionally post stuff.
Fair enough. Mr. Fournier, where can what do you think about all this fun conversation topics as well? Where can folks find you at?
Can find me on the Twitterverse at George V Fournier, because I wanted to make that easy Twitter handle for everybody to find. You can also follow FSR at FSR_INC, which is also FSRinc.com for the website. You have to make sure you put the Inc in there, because if you go to FSR.org, you wind up at the Flying Saucer Research Lab.
Is there a photo of Art Bell there?
And I believe that's where you can find us on the interwebs.
Fair enough.
All right.
I'm Bill O'Donnell. You can find me on LinkedIn as well as Twitter under the original OD. Those are the two quickest ways to find me. And that is it. We will call it a week. We will see you guys next month.